and Instagram. Please give a warm welcome for Chris Brown as they make their way to the stage.
Getting up here is an honest start. Making my fate into some kind of art, I get up here to learn, to teach, by convincing myself of a soft, sweet lie, that your heart's in reach, but nothing is free. We're racing down the roller coaster of destiny without flower or feather. We're scared as hell as we fall through the darkness, but we're scared together. I'm only truly frightened when mistakes are repeated, when I can't stand up to defeat it, the monster we set free, the craven beast, the demon king, the falling, pulling, suffering, I set it free. It's standing up here, our addiction to fear. The evil has me hostage, but I want it. I crave being afraid in front of you. I have an affinity for your doubt. I want to turn your judgment inside out. I want to watch your prying eyes as they switch to match the color of mine, as they brim with the thoughts of my mind. You can't help but unwind in my polite grind against what or where or who you think you are. When I get up here, we share the fear of being so far apart. That's where to find the art and the terrifying climb it takes to get up here. Are you afraid of my obsession? I get up here to vent, to scare myself and others. Some of you are lovers, many not even friends, and still my words might bend you, upend you, lend you as a sacrifice to that sacred, fearsome beat of preservation, a prayer, a calculation, a violent surge of liberation. Listen, words cut, silence raw, bringing life, breaking law. So come darkness and rain, blind hatred, drown pain for all that is changing, to all that remains. Shine light on meadows of soft river grass. Rise justice at midnight to fight for our past. This darkness before you, it thirsts for attention, a breath, a mention from us to me. Along the seas of love and fame, we rise above the waves of bodies, money, work, pain. I am the balloon, you are the flame. We carry each other with newfound air, so high off the ground it's easy to care. Way up here, doesn't matter what you think of me and my work. I am courage. You are earth. I grow where you are. I explode with a spark. You can't help but wonder about what I bring, or my eyes that beam in every direction. I've seen worlds with no other connection than me. I am a universal, unique unit of totality. So are you. Get over it. Get up here. Hi, hello. Thank you for listening to that. I'm Chris Brown. There's a chapbook over there that's full of things that I probably won't read any of tonight. So if you're interested in that, it's like maybe a little more lighthearted than this set. This set is like a little spooky because it's that time of the year. To be spooky. I only get 1 month, so I'm going to use it. I'm starting early. I teach at Valencia College in Winter Park. There's a writing festival, and it is on October 17th at 7 p.m. If you want to read something, you could win up to $125 for a 3 to 5 minute piece. If you're a student, you could win $50 for a piece. There's also a second and third place of $50 and $25. There's a showcase beforehand if you just want to read something or bring merch and you want like 5 minutes to tell people about it. There'll be a showcase before the competition begins. And it's in memory of Elise Kuznets, who is an amazing poet. Please look up her stuff, and there's a poster right there in case you want any of the details, or if you want to read, my email's there. So I only brought one because it's color printed, so there you go. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is read a short story, which is not poetry, so I apologize that this is going to be like 10 minutes of your life. But I'm working on a collection, and the collection is titled Disturbing, Meticulous, and Deeply Confusing. And it's full of 10 short stories that are based on real fears that I've had that grow sort of out of control when you start to relax into them. We're really afraid of what we expect. We're like afraid of boredom. So when you really relax into what you're afraid of, unexpected things happen. and you realize that the expected is really the scariest thing. So the scary story is really beautiful because it exaggerates something so out of control that you realize how small the problem really is, or maybe where the problems really are. Something like that. I have no idea what my voice sounds on this, so I'm sorry if I just great, thank you. Appreciate that. The things we carry. She drove alone for hours until the fuel gauge read E. Her hands were shaking as she punched her pin into the pump. There was no metal clasp, and so she clenched the handle tight to keep the gas flowing. A bad sign, she thought. And the last terrible week resurfaced with anxious vigor. She had betrayed herself in her education. Cheating was easy, and getting caught was too. Respect is a fragile thing, and all her hard work in the program had shattered under the weight of one bad decision. No one would be seen with her. Her colleagues, her second family had abandoned her. They still had publications to achieve, no time for a fraud. She had cared so deeply about the research, it was stress that dragged her into plagiarism. That fall, death had swept through her family like wind through dry trees, shredding what was left. So much change in such a short time. Now the wind turned bitter cold as it cut across her cheek, and, alone at the station, she shivered. With the crunching of gravel, a bright red pickup parked on the other side of the pump. Out stepped a young man with dark eyes and a furrowed brow. He took one look at her and averted his gaze. She wore disheveled a collection of cold weather wear, whatever she grabbed first from the closet. Her face was dry and chapped from tears, but the man saw only her rosy face and thought she could be warmer. She did not want to look at him or anyone, but something deep down told her she must. Her mother's voice, as it carried on the wind itself, spoke clearly. Never give up, little flower. And so she met his eyes. Without an ounce of intention, her lashes fluttered, and he flashed his teeth in a lopsided grin. The handle clicked, the tank was full, and she drove on into the night. Even if she still had a phone, there wasn't anyone she could call, and the dark countryside flitted by silently. She tried the radio, but the few garbled Christian talk shows and the one pop country station she found made her headache. She hadn't been able to enjoy music since she was expelled, and she wondered if she would ever be able to enjoy a song again. In the quiet, she recalled a piece in some developmental psych course from her overpriced undergrad. The details weren't clear, but she remembered the point. When we are born, our mother's touch quiets our crying. As children, friends and teachers show us kindness and teach us how to care for others. Once grown, we take our childhood out into the world, and the cycle begins again. On this night, she guessed perhaps she had not known enough love, or maybe she never received the right kind. Castigated and cast out, no one even cared if she paid the price for her mistakes, as long as she left their lives quickly, quietly. Now, sweet girl, keep faith, she heard her mother's voice again. She worried about finding work out in the middle of nowhere, maybe a cashier or waiting tables. Her mother had done odd jobs until the very end, and she knew she could survive if she met the right people. Graduate school was not a luxurious enterprise, and yet the remainder of her student loan left her with little moving money. An hour outside of the nearest town, and a day from the college. That was most important. There was only one home listed with a rent she could afford with the right specifications. With neighbors so few and far between, no one would bother her for weeks. Stepping onto her new porch, she gazed up into distant pinpricks of starlight, believing that this might finally be a chance to rebuild herself and make a home. She smiled. For the first time in so long, her face felt foreign, swollen with joy. Sweat held the t-shirt close to her rounded sides, and as she carried the last essential boxes into the foyer, she closed the door. A click echoed through the house. It was dead quiet, without sirens, cars, trains echoing around concrete towers. She tried remembering the decor of her apartment, but nothing came to mind. That life was over now. She shrugged. Quite suddenly, the smell of lavender, delicate and sweet, against the dusty interior of the old house, wafted by, one of her mother's favorite scents. Then memories of springtime, lakeside picnics played in her mind. A hopeful glee danced across her face again as she stepped into the bathroom. Hot water washed away the pain in her neck, and she sighed in the steam, but she could not stay for long. He would arrive soon. So she dried quickly and slipped on a tight blue dress cinched at the waist. She looked at herself in the mirror, the bright color encasing her tired body, and she felt more alive than she had in days. She concealed the dark crescents under her eyes with foundation, added blush, and glossed her lips with light pink as a final touch. Then she sat on the bed and waited patiently. A knock at the door, and she swung it open immediately. The young man from the station stared back at her, framed by shaggy hair. His unsure eyes met hers again, and she saw he was younger than she had guessed. She nodded without smiling, as some men did not like her smile, and he stepped inside without a word. She led him to the bedroom, and he sat on the mattress and unbuttoned his shirt. She snapped on the small lamp beside him and then knelt at the foot of the bed. She clasped her hands and lowered her head as if in prayer, but her eyes stayed wide open, transfixed on the dirty floor. They were nothing like the immaculately polished floors at home, she thought. But home was so very far away now. She looked up at the young man who lay back on the bed with his broad chest exposed. His breathing was quick and nervous as she stood over him. She straddled his waist, hiking the dress up over her knees so that the seams popped from the stretch. She looked down at his warm body, rounded muscles, tight sinew, heaving in harmony. But his flesh did nothing for her. She felt only cold, dark sadness. And the sleepy scent of lavender went by again. And she could not help but take a deep breath and relax onto him. He lay beneath her, blinking blankly into her tired face, unmoving and unpracticed in chance meetings such as these. She placed her hand on his rising torso, feeling the pressure of veins pulsing through tissue. She enjoyed his heartbeat a moment. The rhythm of life in a single movement, a force drawing matter together for his use alone. She felt some power in him, and yet she would have to destroy herself for it. This helplessness was not lost on her. Some part of her knew this would be the final act of self-betrayal, an end to everything she had known and loved, but there was peace in it too. Through her sacrifice, they would both be renewed, and a smile curved her painted lips. She traced her finger down to his belly, sensing the candy bar he had enjoyed on the way. She envied how perfectly in tune with this world he seemed, preservatives, steroids, fats, all seamlessly becoming part of him. So many choices for sustaining, reproducing, surviving, and now she would join the work. She let out a moan, losing herself in the interjoining of their bodies. She moved her hand, lower and lower still to the button of his jeans. She unfastened them and slipped her hand beneath the waistband, pressing her fingertips into the musculature above his pelvis. She could feel what she wanted, but then the young man shrieked. He looked away from her, his eyes darting around the room in sudden fear as if awoken from a nightmare. He tried to sit up, so she moved her free hand to his neck and squeezed the fragile box of cartilage there. No one would hear him, but she hated the sound of men losing their minds. He wheezed and choked in her tightening grip, and tears mingled with blood as her nails dug into him. Not wanting to do permanent damage, she released him a moment and lowered herself, suspending her face just above his. Their eyes met, and she saw the little boy still inside him. He had only wanted to help her, to be sure she got back safely. He had the best of intentions in following her, in knocking on the door. He was living as kindly and politely as he knew how. But she had corrupted and controlled him with a single glance. Now his terrified eyes remained fixed on her face, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not move. She hiked her dress up and over her head, so that she was completely naked, with her bare thighs resting on either side of the petrified men. A long yellow cord slid out from between her legs. The sticky, mucus-covered appendage pulsated and thickened as it gingerly felt its way up the man's torso and onto his face, where it caressed the line of his jaw and wet itself with blood and spit. It entered the man's mouth and moved down through his crushed larynx. As he convulsed, she could hear bones cracking as it ripped apart his cavities and reshaped itself inside him. It pushed deeper down through acid and bile. She felt the thing quiver as it found its way inside, and their bodies vibrated from its pleasure. It had finally made another home, a sturdier home, and the woman closed her eyes. Every vessel in her constricted and every muscle tense before releasing in violent spasms, and she was free. She slumped down onto the young man, the thing still writhing between them, and her fading mind returned to her mother, her friends, and some bright self-made future. She felt sunshine warming her hair, and the taste of sweet buttercream stayed on her lips. Then she knew nothing but pleasure and pain as one interminable cycle. Her body twitched once more before the thing pulled out an enormous red and black mass as it wriggled free. Only a shell of the woman remained, like a heavy wet sheet on top of the young man. The sides of the man's mouth bled as the thing pulled its bulk down his throat, and the thing expanded again, broke ribs, and slithered around his spine, latching onto his senses. We're almost done. The young man awoke suddenly to the smell of fresh gingerbread cookies. Somewhere far off, owls hooted like the ones on camping trips with Dad. The arm he broke over the summer still ached, but it bothered him less than ever. Whenever he closed his eyes, he saw his girlfriend's face the first time they made love. But the thing living inside him knew none of this. It sensed the jump in his heart rate. It knew the flood of chemicals and electricity as neurons fired. Nothing more. The thing had many tools to persuade its new host, but it cared only if he moved more or less easily toward the goal. For all the lies it had taken, the thing never learned of the courage needed to dance, nor had it known the quiet pangs at the end of a good book. It could not understand the petty pain of a long line, nor feel regret in words unmeant. It could only know through, not with, and it was truly alone. The hosts were just that, fodder for new fodder, consummation to consume, murder to keep death at bay. Destiny, so the thing assured, was an endless future of ending futures. He pushed off the woman's remains and stood, buttoned his bloody shirt. Instead of decay, the scent of wet soil after rain lingered in the air. Somewhere outside near his truck, he heard the laughter of friends he longed to see again but never would. Still, he smiled. Thanks. Wow, what a thing to read for a peacock. That was weird. I liked it. Hope you enjoyed that. The other stories are probably just as bizarre in the collection, so they all have some real life context and something else to them, I think. Yeah, I don't know what the theme of that is, but every time I read it out loud or read it again, I think that I know what I'm really afraid of in the world, and it's not the thing. So I like that, because the thing is actually really scary in writing and gross. So it's fun to write about. Cool. How many minutes do I have? Do I have like 3 minutes to read something? Yeah? Cool. I have one more thing. It's short. It's one more thing in this spooky set of things. It's not in the book. The book is all like fun stuff. Like my grandma's toilet seat and me replacing it, and like, I don't know. What else is in there? It's like a poem about peace. I cleaned up garbage over the summer, and there's a poem with just quotes from different people who picked up garbage with me. And it's very strange because it's a little story, even though they're from random people. All right, there you go. Oh, and they're free. Please take one. If you
Only free?
Yeah.
It's actually free.
Free 99. If you would like to, like, I don't know, buy a beverage for me one day, maybe not tonight, or put money in my hand, you can, but you really don't have to. I'd rather you just have them because they're made of paper and they won't last very long. Full moon. Full moon. The moon is high. I am wild-eyed. The ambulance blares but does not move. Now the siren's far away. A whistle. Fan blades buzz overhead and I'm changing. If I sleep, when I sleep, hair grows all over my body. I am extended in dead filaments, keratinous sensors to keep me safe from the elements, scented carefully to keep me safe from the hunters and their dogs. I am not a dog. Once I was only a man. Now I am lunatickled. Howling at the goon, menacing if you're meat, but I'm vegetarian. So it wasn't me who bit clean through your flank. I would never, under normal circumstances. Promise. The marble rolls, swells, brighter, rounder. For another night and day, I am the wolfress. Uh-oh. Can they sue a changeling for copyright infringement? Will they try? I do so want them to try. Make me famous, lock me in a cage, hoping it'll hold while they needle me for more blood on their hands. Not my claws, not my paws, not me at all. I'm not changing, never have, never will. Don't be silly. But hypothetically, if wolven candidates were running for president, and hypothetically, if I were a wolf, I'd vote for him based solely on our shared fate. Wolves can trust one another. Wolves know exactly how their fellows will command and chief, except on those 2 nights each cycle. So what if we ask humans to be locked in cages instead of the pups, for once? If they won't do it, they don't respect us. We who change. We who remember the blood oath bite under the full moon. Hey! Thanks for listening. October 17th at 7 p.m. I'll go into the West Grand Park. Okay. Bye. Thank you again.